What is up, everyone? Hello, my name is Charisma Dozier. I'm a freelance illustrator and film editor. I'm currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm from Atlanta. I'm from Brooklyn. So, what's up, Brooklyn in the house? Let's go. So, in today's talk, I will be going over kind of like my journey as a freelance illustrator, how I got here. This is my studio slash apartment. I live here with my partner. We run a tech YouTube, so yeah, we build and sell computers as well. I'm really techie. If you want to know anything about graphics cards and why you can't get any, you could at me, I guess. So we're gonna be over my background and growing up and attending very well-known, prestigious high school in New York City. Balancing art in college. I graduated summa cum laude from Georgia State University. So I guess Panther is. So if you want to know how I did that, I'll try to go over that. How I did that and still doing my art and building that and stuff. Building and working with the artist community in Atlanta. Whew, I love the Atlanta art community. All I gotta say about that, y'all great. I wish I could be out here more because it hurts my soul, but you know how it is. Thank you. Thank y'all. Um, I'll go over the personal projects I'm working on currently, my day-to-day as an illustrator, and I'll try to take some questions in between, like each of those points, or I could try to do it at the end. Depend how fast. All right. So this is my website. Tip number one: always have a website. People need to be able to see, your stuff beyond going to Instagram. No offense, I'm saying it's not good, but if in the future, please do get a website. It helps for people to see like all your stuff really in order. Also, other people look at your website too and give you critiques because you might be like, this looks pretty good, and then be like, I don't know what what job you want. So that's happened to me because I was like, this was kind of all over the place, and I'm like, I want to do more illustration work. And one of the artists I had, they were like, okay, but like you need to clearly, state that. A lot of these, I still love this. My Blue Boy personal piece. A lot of people had requested when I did a print for this, um, like a really holographic shiny print. So they gave me extra, so I just gave away the front. This has, I don't know. That's how I do. This is Lar. He is from my webcomic that I'm working on. It's very different from this one, which I did, which was a great learning experience, but I'll never go back to it. Character designs a little bit. I was like in the middle of like, do I want to do character design or animation, so the older stuff, and more of illustration. Of course, you see Zacharias because Hades is the bomb, y'all. So it all started in a great place called. Oop, don't look at this. It all started in a great place called LaGuardia High School. I don't know if y'all. So LaGuardia is basically a specialized high school for and art, vocal, drama, tech, and dance. So I was an art major. I know, right? That's crazy. Art major in high school. Yes, you had to decide this before you got in. Um, I'm like, hey, thank you. So yeah, so it's basically a specialized high school where you had to audition, you had to have a portfolio. So have been in this game very long. So with getting your portfolio, you had to also do a live drawing test. And remember, you're like 12 or 13, but some of these kids, you know, are upper class and stuff. So they had like these trainings and stuff. I had to learn all this via YouTube, and I was just like, let's go. Let's go. My mom was like, don't get your feelings hurt if you like don't get in. I was just like, fam, don't hurt my feelings. I'm also gonna be drawing while I'm doing this. There's a lot happening unless I go back and forth. But anyway, so I'll probably be drawing my girl from my webcomic. But my mom was like, "Don't get sad if it don't work out. It will work out," and it did. So I auditioned for dance and art. Think I didn't get in for dance, and so started my journey into everything artistic. So a lot of my peers, very varying rate, like everyone came from different parts of the borough. So some people, like I had a few people come from Far Rockaway, which is really far. Had to wake up at 5 a.m. for school like every day. Don't ask me how I did that for 4 years, y'all. I don't want to relive it. So I did that, and I was like, okay, this is great. And then I took my first. They had backtrack and give you a slice of the curriculum we had to do. So we had basic, uh, drawing and painting 1, drawing and painting 2. You had electives you could choose on. So these are like 2 periods. So these are like 2-hour classes ish, 1 hour and 32-hour classes in addition to your academics. So you also had you had your studio classes and then you had your academics. And sometimes, like you have a assignment you got to do. Also, you have a science project. You had to balance. Some kids went nuts because it's a lot, especially if you had a more intensive major like drama, because they had to stay after school till like 6 and stuff, like 10 periods, a lot. So when I went to college, it was a breeze because I survived high school and it was a lot more intensive. Um, so doing all that, I was able to when you take your electives, like everyone has to take printmaking, everyone has to take ceramics. So it was very interesting because I'm like, I never done printmaking. I haven't really had a formal ceramics class either. So learning how to do the wheel, learning how to do like intaglio prints. These are like things and etching and stuff, and like glass engravings. These are all like things I've never got to experience before. And I was thankful. I was like, whoa, didn't know there's so many facets of art. I was just painting and drawing. So I was like so excited. And for your senior year, a select group of seniors, like for each, I want to say every other month, there's like senior art shows. So that's like the head of the art department chooses who will be selected to like have like a solo showing with a bunch of like other seniors, and you have like a gallery space. So we had it in high school gallery space, if that makes sense. It was a lot because they're preparing you kind of for the real world. And so we collabed on the name. We thought of like whose art would go where in the space, and it was all very fun. Like I already knew most of my peers, and we were just really chill. So like our whole creation stuff, we had curators. We're just doing curators, so we had to work within that gallery space like as collective. And then we had our opening, and it was all exciting. And you had a sketchbook open, and everybody could sign it and stuff. And yes, I was very close to my like art department, Dr. Lasky. So I just always kept in touch with her and stuff too, because teachers are cool. Oh well. So from there, also fight for these scholarships, y'all. So doing that really opened my eyes to being like, ooh, freaking love it. In DMs. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm reading chat a little bit in between as well. So yeah, doing all that and balancing my curriculars, I was more than prepared for college. Because like it was either do that or you like kind of feel it. There was no in between because this is like there are so many people that are fighting for these spots in these specialized high schools, especially New York. You're up against competition, so you earn that spot. You have to fight for it, and so a lot of my friends either went to Cooper Union. I know Jakai went for painting. He was more like not surrealist, but yeah. Some people went to RISD, some people went to SVA, some people got their local degree from FIT and then did a 2-year and then went to SVA to get a 2-year and stuff. So I still keep in contact with all my friends because a lot of them are either established and stuff, or they're still like they're learning or doing a different career path. But keep in contact with those that you feel you really drive to high school because you never know, they're really cool or recommend you and stuff. Also did mural painting and had illustration class in high school, and that's what really got me interested in illustration and wanted to do comics. Kind of like, we have a class, and I was also like, I think the same time I took that class was the same time that Miles Morales came out, and I was just like over the moon. I was like, oh, I love this. I love Miles. I was just like, I was like, there needs to be more Black superheroes. This is only the beginning. Let's go. I was like, hell bent on this. And so that was keeping me going too. I mean, like short films, Black superheroes. I was so happy. Because I was like, more people every Black teen I would meet, I'm like, you need to know about Miles Morales. You need to know about Miles Morales. So I was, when the Spider-Verse came out, I'm so happy. I was so proud. I'm like, more people need to see this. Like, it's possible to be Black in comics and like have like these cool stories told. And so yeah, I was like really excited. That was exciting to me. But yeah. So going on from that, we're going over to college. Ooh, college. From college then on, from college then on, I like, all right, I'm not doing art as a major. Now, I know you're asking, like, why didn't you do art as a major? I already did in high school, and I kind of like doing art. I might, I didn't like assignments. Like, I understood the point of them. Don't get me wrong, I understood the point of them, but I really wanted to like have my own kind of way of just figuring stuff out because there were some like points, I guess, that I really wanted to figure out, and I didn't want this like college to kind of like stifle that for me and be like, all right, I have to do this and I'm paying for it. No. Instead, I said my second thing, which I really loved a lot, was film. I became my bachelor's in film and video with, this is very important, with a minor entrepreneurship. So my mom was like, you could be an artist, but you also need business acumen. So I can't fault her for that. She was like, all right, but you better know these here laws. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. Because she was like, you better take it or else. I know it's ominous. But I was like, okay, I'll take it. So I graduated a year early. I will tell you how to do that. I took APs. I took the ones that I liked. I already knew I was gonna fail stat in high school. Like I didn't fail it, but that's not it. I did AP bio, AP environmental science. I loved environmental science. I really wanted that to be my major but I couldn't find a good program that wasn't gonna cost me an arm and a leg. Um and AP Comp, AP World History. Yes, that was a lot of money at $50 each for them tests. But it saved me credits, so I'm like, was it worth it? I guess. Yes. But check with your college on if it's accepted or not. So I'm supposed to be drawing y'all, but I'm because I get very animated. You can't see my hands. Animated with my hands. But yeah, stats was like trash. Anyway, so I was like, cool, I got these credits. I was already had my schedule mapped out. I just showed it to the counselors or the guidance counselors at college because they don't know what they don't know. They're like most of the time just like cycle through. So like I had a new one like every semester. So I was like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. Just approve it. And they were like, dang, she had it on she had it on a little drive. She was ready. Yes, I'm not here to waste my time and my money. Let's go. um, so I was doing that, and I was learning. Film is very helpful. Even like I was still doing art, of course, but film was very helpful because I was taking analysis and a lot of theory. Hard to say was weird because like if you wanted like an actual hands-on film class, like there was a limited amount of seats, and most of the time they're for upperclassmen, and the lower classmen didn't get any. So I was like, cool. I just had to do a lot of filming on my own. So I mean it's fun because I liked editing and like making my own concepts and stuff, so it worked out. But for that, I was mostly doing doing a lot of theory. We're looking at a lot of foreign films, a lot of like classicism, French New Wave, German expressionism, which is really good if you're looking for exaggerated shapes and silhouettes. Check out, you can DM me if you want of like some really good German expressionism films. I love those. It's my favorite era. Um, and Italian. I forgot. Yeah, something. But yeah, so just having that background and like looking at different films and different compositions kind of helped me just like understand ways to like get mood, I guess, later on in my art and kind of like analyze it differently. Because when you're like coming at it's good if you just like do art, but if you have something else like another background and another study that can help you or inform you on different ways to supplement that into your art, it's very important. So that's why like you can be an artist, but you can also be a whole lot of other things, and it's good to have side hobbies because those could come in to play and when you're doing words when you're doing compositions and illustrations and stuff like. So yeah, doing that, I was mostly watching films. When I wasn't watching films, I was working on like commissions for like friends. I remember I had like before it was Clip Studio, it was Manga Studio 5. I don't know if y'all know that. And I was like, heck yeah. Manga Studio 5 is that was the disc version. I don't know if y'all even got that. That was my clip. It turned into clip later on, but I was like, I need something cheap, $50. I was like, cool. Had on my laptop, had my little bamboo tablet. We was working on these commissions. We was working. Um, but yeah, so like working one on one with people, it was hard because like sometimes it'd be like, all right, I kind of got like stuff. So I had to manage, make sure my classes work was done. A lot of times, like teachers upload the stuff, your syllabus, whatever. I just breeze through that. So like the easier classes, I'm like, that's done for this semester because I already did the work. I could like spend time like going around and looking at different places and seeing new murals and stuff like that. Because Atlanta, if you ever come to Atlanta, there are so many murals and so like it's big on mural artists out here, and it's gorgeous. beautiful work they do out here. And so when I was doing that, um, I was also doing film stuff, so it was like work firing both brain cells at once, and making sure that I still was working on my art continuously. So, because if you don't work on art for a while, like it's like a muscle. It starts to wane and you're like, I don't know how to draw a face anymore. I don't know how to draw a circle anymore. So it's very important that you keep that up and that you keep working on your craft. Regardless, it could be like 10 minutes a day, but I would carry like I'll have my bag on my back, my add to stuff in the other hand. Let's go. And people keep mistaking me for art major. Like, I thought you were art major this whole time. Like, no, I do film, but love art. And I was so happy. Because I got all the hard classes or the not so fun classes in like freshman and sophomore year. I recommend that so you can have fun in your junior senior year. Please, please do that. Do not save the hard classes for your last year because you will not like it. Do all the ADMs and stuff. Do that when you're in freshman. Please, please save yourself. So that way you can like relax. I remember I took like it was a drawing one class, and it was so fun. It was so cool because I'm like I'm back in my element. I miss a little bit. I miss being in the studio, and I didn't really have that like in film class, of course, because I was in class. I was like, nope, we're taking a we're taking a drawing class this time, and I was really happy to be able to do it. Yay! But what else happened? Okay. And then so did all that. So college comes around, graduate, yay. Now you're like, okay. Also, sad note, I guess. My mom had passed during my junior year, so that was like a lot. That was a lot to deal with. So yeah, so I had to deal with that in college as well, and just I didn't draw for a while because obviously grief. I was trying to like figure out, okay, graduated. I was like, my main concern after my mom passed was like, okay, I got financial aid. That was a nightmare and stuff. Um, yeah. So left college. We're out now. We're free. I did a lot of odd jobs. When you come straight out of college, you're not like, jobs, come to me. That's not what happened. So after I got out, I worked on and off summer camps in Colorado. So I worked as a camp counselor and I did arts and crafts and stuff. Fun. And I did a tattoo design for one of my friends out there. Had a lot of people from like around the country. Some people were in California that came to the camps. People were in Georgia. A couple people from Georgia. So it was good to like meet and mingle with different people. So I did that one time in college, and then a second time before I left college, I did it. And then I came back here. I was like, all right, we need to find a job that will not. And so I worked at Emory Guazueda Business School. It's a really prestigious business school out here in Georgia. So they have a in-house video a video recording station. So I was in there working with my bosses, Lanier and Grace, and they were the best bosses ever. It was like they would like teach me and another intern like around the ways, like the different cameras, how to set up, different shots. Took us on a couple shoots. I was able to interview like able to interview a really famous congressman here in Atlanta, and just being with a lot of also again business. So I get to hear like different people in entrepreneurship, and got to like go around to like different soirees and mingles and like hear what they're talking about and how business people kind of approach themselves in terms of like selling and how to market and stuff. So that was like in itself a kind of learning lesson all wrapped in one for me. So I was like, this is cool. And Linero and stuff, they both had like separate interests and stuff because Grace used to work at a broadcasting place as well. And I worked, oh, and Linero works in photography, so he knew a lot about cameras and composition and photos and stuff like that. So it was very good, and they were like always coming to my shows and stuff. So it was really cool. Had a nice community of from my boss. Very sweet. Oh, leaving there, went to a startup. I was doing design, and I was like, ooh, first off, they didn't give me a contract, which, which was a big oof. Oof, y'all. Please do not go if you all go for a sign up or like a small team and stuff. Please get a contract. Like the art director that hired me, I'm like, she came from SCAD, and I'm like, girl, you doing a lot. She was doing the brand. She was doing like the animation. She was doing the everything, like the branding elements and stuff for the company. And I'm like, so you have a contract? She's like, I don't have one. I'm like, girl, you need to leave. That was a red flag for me. So already I was like, all right, I'm not gonna stay here. No problem. Um, so worked there, and then like afterwards, I was like, this is not gonna work because they had me like I was on call because I was like helping the art director with some branding elements and stuff, and like there was really no set hours, which was was mind-boggling to me because I'm like I have other stuff I need to do, like work my portfolio and do stuff. And they were like, yeah, like we were on some scheduling app, Trulia or one of them, and I was just like, y'all, there's no schedule. They're like, hey, can you fix this? Hey, can you go back and fix this? Hey, 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 hey. Like there was no like cutoff, and I was like, I can't work like this. At Trello, thinking he said, I was like, there's no cutoff, and I kind of need to focus. So was doing all that, but it lasted for maybe like a month or so. And I was like, all right, my boyfriend and my grandmother was like, you're not happy here. We can see this. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Not happy. I feel like I'm working for someone else's dream and it's just not fulfilling to me at all. And I was every time I was looking for like different places, different opportunities and stuff like that. And I'm like, a lot of the time I'm like, cool, but I'm still working, for someone else's dream. It's not my own. It doesn't get me excited to like do this. Especially if there's like no contract, no parameters, there's nothing. And I mean, for some startups, it's good to get in the beginning stage of something. Because you're the founding team or whatever. But a lot of times, it's just like you'll know if it's worth your time, but by like what's going on, and it was not. And so I left that. I was like, all right, peace, y'all. And they were really trying hard. They were like, we didn't have the final files. I'm like, yes, I sent them. And they're really not trying to pay me like that, like final pay they were supposed to. And I was like, we're gonna go to court because y'all owe me money. So after threatening with them with court, they gave me my check. But yes, please know your worth, y'all. Do not go out here and be like, I gotta take each and every job because a lot of times they do not care. Not to say like they don't, but sometimes you're just an employee and you have to like kind of know your worth and not fall for that. And I'm young, I'm out of college. I'm like, okay, are people always like this? It's just like, because I hadn't experienced it up until this point. Like, okay, they're acting like this now. So I was kind of saying it, fam. But let's get to current day. So I'm a freelance illustrator, still working out, like different revenue streams and fun like that. But I'll talk about what I do now. So a lot of times I do commissions. I'm teaching a class, which is exciting for 2 months. It's like I have 13 students so far, so then it costs a pop. A lot of people sign up, they don't even know me, so I'm excited. How I got that gig was that there was a local art competition happening in where I live. So it was by the municipality, by the city. So I was like, cool, let me submit. Not a lot of people did. I did a really cool design. It was for like their art studio on the go-go, so it's like mobile art studio thing for like kids to do, and it made it really fun, made it really colorful. They loved it. We had a sit down chat before COVID. We had a sit down talk about like how my art would be shown, the dimensions. They paid me, I got my money, and fast forward, they're like, "Hey, we're looking for instructors for a class for the community." So I'm like, "Heck yeah, sign me up. I love talking about art. I love doing art, and yeah, so." I'm teaching. Never would have thought, right? I love, like telling people like different ways of like illustrations and compositions and backgrounds and colors because it's so fun and there's no one way to do it. I'm one that doesn't have a singular style. For those that don't, I see you and I feel you. You do not have to have a singular style. It is okay to have multiple. Because you want me to be like, dang, I only got like I got like 5 styles. That person only got like the one, but singular. But use that to your strength. Because for the one actually for the one second. For the contest that I did for them, that was not like it's very like cutesy, very like playful because it's for kids, so it couldn't be like very dark and heavy, illustration style, like comic book or graphic style that I would like to do. But it had to be, easy and approachable. Colors had to be kind of muted, and it had to be, easy for like the kids. Show you. So this is what I did. I know I forgot to. So you had a whole there's a whole packet of like the dimensions, and you had to do it in vector because you have to print it because doing a wrap. So I did this, and this is my proposal. Very important when you do proposals, y'all have to listen to what they are requiring you to do. If they want the logo in a certain spot, please put it in a certain spot. If they if they want it to fit, or show off if they have names that they want shown on the proposal, please put it in. Do not. I mean, you can have fun within the dimensions, but try to listen to the proposal. They needed our studio on the go-go on one side, and they needed, kind of on the other side as well, but I did it a different way. It's very different from like what I usually do. That was the one before, and they'll usually give you all the assets and stuff that are to go with it. So yeah, listen to it, listen to all the proposals, and make sure you read the requirements, because that literally will put you probably number one. And then your art and stuff too. But if you listen, you kind of get the feeling, and sometimes it's kind of a bit of luck because the little mantra I put at the end, "Fun awaits." They were like one of the um past creator or like staff members there. I used to say that a lot, and so that reminded them of them, and they were like, "We like this." I'm like, "Oh, that was all happenstance. I didn't know that would, you know." I was just having fun with the design. I was like, "Cool for kids. I got you. I know in my mind what that looks like." And sometimes if you have one style, that could be a little bit limiting because you're like, "I don't know what to do with this." Like, you're gonna have to spend a little more time, kind of researching that and stuff. So okay, but fun. Don't Control yourself. Oh, currently, I know I'm supposed to be drawing at the same time, y'all, but just having fun. So this is me current day. Oh, when I'm not doing like traditional painting. I do both, and you see this over here. I do traditional painting and both illustrations. So I did illustration for voice actors for their YouTube thumbnails. Um, I did custom illustration work for some clients. It's all about, and now I'm reaching out to art directors for certain publications because I really would love to do book illustrations, like for covers and stuff. That'll be my jam. So putting together a list to do that, and in tandem with working with my spouse with our YouTube and our computer selling business. That's a lot, right? I have multiple hats, so I know how to do multiple things. I also have YouTube where I do reviews. and talk about different tech and tablets and art. And yes. So just going through these a little bit so y'all can see, because obviously y'all didn't see me draw because I'm too busy talking. I can't do both, which I thought I could. So I made this one like a few days ago. I want to say a week ago. I'm pushing myself to do more backgrounds, y'all. I know some of y'all don't want to do it. Oh, Kipo's so good. Sorry, I'm looking at a tattoo. Kipo is really good. I gotta finish. But I was like, I gotta do more backgrounds because if I want to get into doing some book illustrations, I gotta get versed in backgrounds and non-backgrounds. I already know non-backgrounds. I got that down pat. Um, I really wanted to try to think of more storytelling elements, reaching back into that film brain of mine and just doing a lot of just like studying of other films, looking at a whole bunch. Thank you. Looking at a whole bunch of different mediums. Over here is like 1,000 freaking comics because I love comics. I love graphic novels. I'm currently in the process of doing a webcomic, but I'm like, I had to take it immediately because I'm like, I love this so much. But my problem is when I was in high school is that I would read in them and stuff, but I didn't have a wide breadth of different ways of storytelling, if that makes sense. So I was kind of used to seeing like the Marvel way or the DC way. I didn't really get into webcomics until like later on, like now, like this past year and last year, and just seeing like the different variety of like how to tell a story that really would have been helpful. um, me back when I was in high school, but I was just excited. I still didn't really have my voice in high school, if that makes sense, like my artistic voice. I'm still figuring it out now, but I guess it's a little bit more structured a bit, but and actually doing comics, like I mean, I did some of my sketchbook back in high school, but then it's back and forth between illustration and comics, illustration and comics. I'm like, I can do both. I just have to set the time and make a project for that. You know, it's harder when you're like, I'm just gonna like move around. Ooh, Sweet Puns on Twitch asks, do you prefer to have an idea first and start drawing or vice? Um, really good question about that. I like to. It's sometimes a hybrid. I'll sometimes be like in front of my tablet and be like, I don't know what to draw, and then I'll just start doodling. Sometimes it's good to just aimlessly doodle, but like, okay, I kind of remember an image I really liked I saw from Twitter, or this like Henrik Leffler piece that I saw back in the day, and that was really cool. Or like, I want to capture this emotion, something. Also, I have like these sticky notes, so in case like a wild idea just like runs past my mind while I'm doing like watching TV, like watching Twitch or something, I'm like, oh my god, write it down, and I put it put it somewhere because like then I'll go back to it, you know, because sometimes you'll have ideas and you'll be like, I don't have the time to execute that right now. That's a cool idea, so like I'll go back and forth and kind of like um save it later, like, okay, wrote that down, save it. That'll be for when I'm ready. Or if I have a time where I don't have an idea, I'll come back to it and I'll be like, well, pick that up. Yeah, that just works for me because it's been really helpful. Like not thinking like I have to execute this idea now or it's never gonna happen. I could just be like, I'm gonna write it down, I'm gonna save it for later, and I'm gonna come back. Sometimes you're like, I'm doing something right now. Um, we will talk about this in a bit. So this is currently my baby that I'm working on, my webcomic. It's about an enchanted transcribing mage who can talk to other enchanteds or magical beings, and he has to get a magic sword to protect the rest of the kingdom from an impending doom. Yes, that's my pitch. So I was debated. I did a previous comic before this called Monsters and Monsters, but I wasn't feeling the story. It just wasn't it. I was trying to make it work. It just wasn't. It just not work. And that's okay. Like you have to be honest with yourself. Like if you're going through a story or like a creative phase, or it's just like this is not working out. Understand why it's not. The story wasn't really meshing with me. It wasn't like something I thought I wanted to tell it, but it wasn't. I was like, all right, this ain't it. And it's okay. It sometimes takes that humility as an artist to be like, can't force it to work. If your heart's not there in it, if you're not feeling it, your audience is gonna eventually feel it. No matter how hard they probably love that story. If you're not feeling it, then eventually that's gonna come off in your storytelling. So I uh, I really love these two. I'm gonna get to why, because I actually came up with the image first and then the story. I don't know if anybody else has done that, probably, but yeah, I'll be like, let's do it. Okay, do it. Got that one. Ow. There we go. So this is what I created first. So the left is R and the right one is Durant. Durant is a little enchanted boy here. He's special. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but he's I just love him. He's my child. Um yes, it is relatable. Um okay. Ah. So yeah, my child is very I love these two. I had an idea of like a sword. I wanted a sword in there somewhere. I wanted it really cool. Had the sword, had these two. I actually did Lar first, like for the composition, and I was like, this is gonna be long. Hence, it was a long composition. Thank you, thank you. And then I started going off and be like, all right, this is later on in the story, but I wanted to illustrate it. And just having fun. Like once you have that like sparking idea, like when you have a story that you have to, or you want to tell, it will come through. You will know it. You will know it and you will feel it and you'll be like, this is it. I need to tell it. It's gonna annoy me. These the characters gonna be in my head. I need to get them out for everybody else. And stuff. So so this is like in the process of me like I'm figuring out like, okay, like I made these illustrations now. How do I translate that into um, you know, into a linear kind of thing. I still wanted to, I was debating on making it color or not color. In the end, I was like, I need color because it's very integral to the story. Spot colors would have been a little bit harder, and I didn't feel like it was easier to color it than just spot color. So that was like a personal thing for me to choose. And so this is how I formatted it in for webtoons. Still kept the original image, big one, because I loved it. And then I had to figure out how to make it flow. But thank God for Clip Studio because it made it a little bit easier, and the flow was, figure out. Woo. So try to speed that up because we got like 10 more minutes for the next person. So any questions? I know I went through kind of stuff kind of fast and just wanted to give like an overall gist of the journey. It's still going. I'm not gonna act like I know everything. I don't. I'm still learning a lot of stuff. And if you want to know about clients, I can quickly go over that, how to deal with that, doing contracts, making sure you get paid. Answer some questions on that. And y'all need to protect your sketches, please. Sometimes with clients, they might use it on you, and you'd be like, okay, I see one on Twitch real quick. Is that I'm in uni now. Should I start connecting now or before I have my own style ideas, or afterwards when I graduate, or does it just depend? I feel like you should do it if you feel confident enough. Don't wait. Personally, I feel like you could still learn and still like practice a lot of the stuff now. Don't be like, all right, like you can't feel like there must be a specific time because the time will never come, if that makes sense. You have to be like, all right, figure out what you need to work on, how you're gonna get there. So like say, okay, I want to work with publications. All right, what I need to do, I need to figure out if there's any online, talkings going on, like cons and stuff. If I need to, who are the 80s I want to connect with? What kind of work do they do? Are there any other artists that I follow that'll work with this person? And, kind of follow up with that and figure out, what is the trajectory, if that's your trajectory for you, and ask questions. Definitely please ask questions. It will save you so much time and you will not waste your time doing it. You'll just, cut that learning curve in half. You'll just be like, okay, that's the experience. I know what to do. Did you juggle film art of trying to be fine, but one dominates the other? They're gonna each kind of like have their own like play for playback. It's gonna be a little hard. I'm not gonna lie and be like, it's easy. It's not. I would say to just pick out when you're doing, like, say when you're doing your filming, like, keep in mind certain, like, elements, or even, like, jot down quick little thumbnails of, like, things that you liked about it that you can maybe bring back to your art. Or another fun way is like, I like sometimes like to do this. Like after I watch a movie, I immediately make like art from it that I'm inspired by and see how that translates into like what I just like witnessed or how I learned, and that kind of helps me. I'm like, why did I choose that? What was I trying to convey with doing this? So like, right, it's fresh in your mind. I don't know if that makes sense, Vincent. It's fresh in your mind, and you can like make something completely different or like how you felt from watching that piece of media. I'm just like, whoa, all the stuff, sweetie bun. Yeah, it's like you gotta kind of decide like which. Sometimes you be like, all right, this week I just gotta focus on film because this needs to get done. Other times you're like, all right, I got time to like dip and dab. So let's have some fun. Oh. Are there some old aspects slash habits that you kept in your art, like certain way you drew something in your older art that you still kept? Um, I would say like I want to say my nose is kind of kept the same. No, lie. Eyebrows. Yeah, I love thick eyebrows. I feel like let me get real quick. Oh, yeah, Duran has kind of thick eyebrows. Let's see this one. Girl here got some thick eyebrows. I love thick eyebrows because I got thick eyebrows. So that might just be a personal thing for me. Just like they gonna come through, and they're just so expressive because I like drawing like the individual hairs into thick eyebrows. Let's go, y'all. Let's go. It's so fun. But yeah, thick eyebrow gang. So honestly, they're so fun. Woo! Yes. But let me give my handle in case y'all want to like say what's up. Okay. Oof. All right. Y'all can find me here real quick. I already got things. I'm also on the Instagrams. I didn't cave in. Oh my God, there's a lot of people. Hi, y'all. I'm also here. You can also ping me or DM me on on Jesus Discord as well. And ask me any questions. I'm more than free to like, you know, tell you all that I know, tell you any resources that have helped me. If you really want me to like delve in more about illustration stuff too, just ask me if you want some critique. I'm always fun for that. I love it. I love critique. And stuff. Also check out The Enchanted. It is on Tapas. And if I can get my life together, it is on Tapas and on Webtoon. You might have to search Charismad on Webtoons. Don't look it up. Oh, good. Anyway, yeah, you might have to search Charismad on Webtoons for the enchantments, but on Tapas, it should come up. Oh, gotcha, Sim. I'm doing it now. Yes. Right, and all the stuff. And I'll post my email as well. In chat if anybody like wants to like if you like I don't have any social media, which I understand I didn't have some for like a hot minute. Ooh. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. I'm like, what is my Alright. Yes, thank y'all. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of the con. I'm sorry I was speaking so fast and stuff, but so much stuff I want to cover. But yes, if you have any questions, concerns, enjoy the rest of the con. I will be shopping around, just so you know. So you know. And yes, no problem, y'all. Welcome, you're welcome. And just thank you for having me. This is such a fun experience. So, woo. And just get that energy up. You're welcome, y'all. Get that energy up. Have some fun. Go to the bathroom for the next one. Get your water. Get some food. And have fun. Bye, y'all. That was wild.
My name is Roxy. On Twitter, ArtStation, and Ko-fi, you can find me under Appleaerosol. If you're one of the 10 people who still uses Tumblr, I'm Apple Eater. In this panel, I'm going to talk about mental illness and blackness. But before I start, I want to go over a few things. This panel will include mentions of mental illness, ableism, racism, and current events. If any of this content may be upsetting or triggering to you, I urge you to leave this panel and enjoy yourself. Your own well-being is your top priority. As a disclaimer, I am speaking on this topic as a Black American person, and even then, my experiences are limited to me and cannot be applied to all Black people everywhere, let alone all POC everywhere. 90% of this is independent research. If you are not Black and this panel affects you in a way that is constructive and thoughtful, then that's fine, and I'm glad for it. The picture I am working on here will be available for viewing on my Twitter, Tumblr, and ArtStation. So if you're here, you might be thinking, why the heck would someone host a panel about this at an art convention? Well, to raise awareness, and to let others know they're not alone. The prevalence of mental illness in Black Americans is incredibly high, but it goes unnoticed because we're conditioned to see it as a weakness, or because it's simply not a Black thing. Or, worst of all, the systems in place simply are not established to care much about Black people. It's not a fun topic, but it's an important topic. While I'm definitely not the first person to talk about this, and I certainly won't be the last, I'm more than happy to add my piece to this growing conversation. Even if this may be preaching to the choir, if at least one person can leave this video with something new to think about, or feeling reassured that they aren't a freak because their brain works differently, then I've done my job. To understand mental health and Blackness in the context of today, we need to look back to yesterday first. Illnesses and disorders of the mind have been around since humans developed brains, but the current structure for recognizing, diagnosing, and treating mental disorders in the United States is as recent as the late 1700s, around the time of the American Revolution. Then it was called lunacy, or hysteria, or something else offensive. Pre-Civil War researchers and medical experts believed that Black people were susceptible to a variety of mental illnesses, like negritude, drapetomania, and dysaesthesia Ethiopia, which respectively were defined as the irrational desire by Blacks to become white, the compulsive desire of enslaved peoples to flee plantations, and dullness and lethargy, which would now be considered depression. The recommended cure for all of these was physical punishment. Asylums did exist in the antebellum world of the South, but most did not accept Black patients, and they were garbage for anyone who had the misfortune of being placed in one anyway. The few that did accept Black patients either housed them outside or in local jails. And, of that small number, there were asylums that took Black children, misdiagnosed them, and exploited them for labor. I'm not sure if this is the first time Black bodies and minds were exploited by medical institutions, but it definitely seems to be one of the earliest cases of it. Shortly before and after the Civil War and the emancipation of enslaved peoples, white researchers continued to give their own expert opinions on mental illness in Black people. John Galt famously declared in 1848 that Africans could not develop a mental illness because, as enslaved people, they were not emotionally exposed to the stresses of profit-making, which was considered a prerequisite for most rich white men, people to develop lunacy. Others, like Dr. T.O. Powell of the Georgia Lunatic Asylum, observed an increase of insanity and tuberculosis cases among freedmen in his state and attributed these illnesses to their freedom. Never mind the racist socioeconomic systems in place, especially in the South, that rendered their freedom virtually moot, and the rising cases of anti-Black violence. As America slid into the 20th century, eugenics came into scientific vogue after it was founded in Britain. For those who don't know, eugenics is a pseudoscience that proposes that people with good genetics should be encouraged to reproduce while those with bad genetics should be sterilized. Doing this would eventually lead to an ideal society, or something close to it. The US would immediately put this into practice by legalizing forced sterilization state by state. These forced sterilization efforts focused on those who were institutionalized as they were deemed genetically unfit. A large percentage of patients for these procedures were institutionalized Black people, many of whom had been misdiagnosed or falsely accused of crimes. Forced sterilization lost some of its appeal once Nazi Germany grew into a visible power on the international scene, but many southern states, most notably Alabama and North Carolina, continued implementing legal forced sterilization until the 1970s. As an FYI, forced sterilization of the mentally incompetent is still legal in some states, but in most places, sterilization is only legal if the patient gives informed consent to the procedure and is over the age of 21, in exemplum for vasectomies and hysterectomies. Around the same time these forced sterilization procedures were active, institutionalized patients, again, many of whom were Black American, were also subject to lobotomies. A lobotomy is the surgical removal or scrambling of parts of the brain and was the go-to treatment for reducing symptoms of mental illness and disorder. Patients of lobotomies usually survived, but were often confused, sluggish, without their original personalities, and had much less body control. I can't find an exact date for the very last lobotomy in the United States, but it's placed around the late 50s and early 60s. Lobotomies are now actively disparaged against, considered medical barbarism or savagery, and are used as notable examples of medical institutions and professionals trampling over the rights of patients. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, medical professionals and institutions began to acknowledge that mental health is complex and should be considered in the context of socioeconomic factors like poverty and racism, thanks in part to civil rights demonstrations and the slow but present and increasingly dynamic progress of the fields of psychology and neuroscience. Now, we can talk about today's dilemmas: the erasure of mental illness by mainstream society and the belittling of it in Black communities. I think the last 4 to 5 years have been pretty mentally taxing on anyone, and if you didn't already have a mental illness, you probably developed one. And of course, the United States has only just begun to maybe kind of sort of take mental health a little seriously in its 200-something years of existence. But Black people face unique mental health issues and stressors that range from the obvious, being flooded with information about aggressive racism or experiencing aggressive racism, to the sneakier and more insidious: tokenization, identity threat, the messages many Black people have subconsciously absorbed in which mental illness is equated to weakness or defectiveness. As a whole, most Black people share a history that's about perseverance over hardship. Our stories are centered around survival and strength, rather than victimhood. This is good. The problem is that many Black communities also tend to believe that mental illness is a sign of weakness and is something that only weak, usually white, people deal with. This is not good, because Black people, especially Black youths, are more than twice as likely than their white counterparts to attempt suicide. And it seems as though they do it quietly. I guess because we've internalized that being weak just isn't something Black people can be, or because we learned from a young age that acting even a little out of the norm of Blackness is being uppity or weird. So on top of the mental illness, Black people are also thrown into an identity crisis in which we are forced to just suck it up because our Blackness is on the line, and we've got 2.5 centuries of survival and strength sitting on our shoulders, whether we want to admit it or not. And of course, none of this is happening in a vacuum. We not only have to deal with the erasure and belittling of mental illness and disorder in Black communities, we also have to deal with it in an external world where mental illness is mainly associated with white bodies. Not a dig at white people, of course. A mental illness is rough for anyone who has it, but it makes pleading your case to medical professionals as a Black person or any non-white person very difficult. The best example of this is diagnosing autism. Autism is already extremely tricky to diagnose in children, never mind adults, but it becomes more difficult to diagnose it in women and girls because now we know how they show symptoms differently due to societal pressures about femininity. Now, when we extend that to race, it gets trickier because information about autistic Black girls and women specifically is almost non-existent. It's there, and it's growing, but it's extremely recent. With a medical industry that struggles with apathy towards miscommunication with patients, a long history of racism, and other systemic problems, Black people already struggle to self-advocate for when they're feeling basic physical pain, and some doctors don't even take this seriously. It's 10 times harder when speaking out about mental illnesses. And we've learned in the last few years how dangerous it can be to show your symptoms of mental illness in the outside world, something that is difficult, maybe even impossible to control. So, if you made it to this point, you may be expecting, or maybe hoping, for some inspiring and positive quote. Well, I don't have one. I didn't even try to find one, to be honest. I don't like telling people it will get better when I don't know if it really will get better. A lot of us who were and still are going through it are probably a little tired of hearing it gets better as cliches when we felt like garbage for years, especially if you don't have access to professional resources. But I can say this. You aren't any less Black because you have a mental disorder. You aren't any less anything because you have a mental disorder. But don't ignore that you have one. If you suspect something, seek out help. If you know you have one, own it and realize that it probably runs deeper than you would like. It's going to suck, and you'll probably need help, but you'll be better off for it. Depending on your circumstances, this is definitely easier said than done. You're going to fall a lot. You're going to deal with people who will hurt you and disappoint you, either on purpose or on accident. We're living in a country that's taking its time to care. And a lot of times, you're probably going to be your own worst enemy. On the screen, I put up some helpful resources. Always reach out if you need help. And even though I don't know if it will get better, it's worth sticking around to find out. I want to give a big thanks to BCM for approving this panel idea. I'm still shocked, honestly, but I hope I delivered. I also want to thank my friends for supporting me in the internet for all the research so I wasn't talking out of my neck the entire time. I'll list my sources on the screen if you're interested in looking for yourself. And most importantly, thank you to everyone who decided to come by and listen to this. This was supposed to be more casual, but there was so much information to go over, it turned into a video essay. I actually don't get this heavy on social media, but I talk about important things sometimes, I guess. My essay ends here, but I left the rest of the footage for anyone who wants to relax and decompress with the rest of my speed paint. Enjoy! So hey everyone, I just want to chime in and say thanks again for sticking around. A lot of this is just like I said, it's just my speed paint. But thank you so much for the positive messages and enjoying the essay. This is my very first time doing something like this. I'm so glad it went over really well. I'll be posting my sources and the resources in the chat in a minute. With the way the setup is right now, I kind of have to work around getting to my links and then posting them in the Discord without moving away from the video. So it might take a second, but I will do it. I'm glad you all learned something and found it helpful. There's there's like a whole bunch of information on this on the internet. It's great. This is a topic that's really important to me. And if it's really important to me, I'm sure it's at least important to at least 2 other people here. That's just how I see the world. It's probably at least important to at least 2 other people. And I'm glad I can reach so many of you all. My stutter is coming out, sorry. But I'm so glad I can reach so many of you all with this. If you have any questions or concerns or just want to chat, I'll be sitting here until the end of the video or until I get shooed away, either or. But I will work on getting those sources and resources linked in here.
You guys ready? How's everyone else doing? Oh my god, there's so many people. Are you guys having fun today? There's so many good artists on the artist alley. Have you looked at them? So good. I am very excited. Good, thanks. How are you? I'm okay. I'm okay. Nervous. I'm very nervous. But we're good to go. Okay. I just got hello. We're super ready. Hello and welcome. And we have I am Migu, and I'm gonna be talking about um, yeah, visual development a little bit. Also, I missed the O there. Please forgive me. I am not an English speaker. Um, but yeah, thank you for coming, guys, and thank you for having me. Especially Black Card members for organizing all of this. Sal just putting so much work as well as everyone on the staff. It's just amazing. Um, a little bit of disclosure. My last year and this year hasn't been a very good year for me. Um, so opportunities like this help me stay very creative and meeting cool people and kind people who are just getting together to create amazing things are very inspiring, and I appreciate it a lot. And I appreciate the opportunity that you guys gave me here. And I hope I can just hold up to the name of, you know, being a panelist and an ambassador of Black Card members. Yeah, without getting very into details of my life, but you know, thank you guys so much. But yeah, um, welcome to Design and Visual Development 101. Um, for tomatoes like me, um, who are into doing art, and yeah, um, but who is Migu? You might not know me. I am Migu or Tortupolar. I'm an artist, a designer, an editorial designer, and I enjoy painting digitally a lot. I am Black Hat members ambassador, and um, I am also neurodivergent, which is important for me to say because I have a little bit of um, neurocognitive dysfunction, which means sometimes I might not find the correct word for some things, um, which might lead me to just say a lot, or just throw away like an idea completely and move on, which works for me to stay on track. So thank you for your patience, and please indulge me into like this endeavor of talking about visual development. In terms of my art, yeah, I do art. I do digital art. I create cutesy kinds of illustration. Um, I have been getting more into digital art as of lately, as of the latest parts of my life. Um, because I enjoy it a lot and enjoy telling stories a lot. And lately, visual development is something that I've been getting a lot of interest. I am a house leader for visual development house in a project called Open Animation, and I am in like I give out the class for visual animation, visual development in Open Animation as well. So I brought you here a little bit of talk about it. Well, not about the class, but about visual development in general. I also do sometimes characters and little fan arts of things. This is some of the cute art I do. Um, um, but also before doing art, I'm also a designer, a graphic designer, editorial designer. I have worked with a lot of brands. I've worked with Wacom Mexico, and I've worked with other people like, you know, uh, makeup artists and studios from around my city, as well as I used to work for Michelin nationally, making publicity for them and their tires, which was fun. Um, um, so yeah, when I got here, I really had this idea of what kind of um, cool topic I could talk about, because a lot of you guys are already amazing artists, and and I don't think technically there is nothing that I can teach you how to draw or how to make, but I can talk about my experience with design. And link it together with visual development, because at the end of the day, when you're a visual developer, you are also kind of a designer. Well, you are a designer, and sometimes that can be very daunting, in the sense that sometimes we don't know how to get the correct answers of what works and what doesn't. Um, um, yeah, so here's a little bit more art. Um, uh, my journey with graphic design, I think, taught me a lot about um, what communication is, and how to apply this to certain aspects of visuals, which I think um, helps a lot when you're trying to get visual development, into visual development. Sometimes as artists, we cannot rely on having eureka moments, um, um, because being contracted to do work in the art industry sometimes means that you have to stay creative 24/7 during a long time, and artist blogs happen, and sometimes you have to create, like, your creating process has to become that it has to become a process that you can turn on and off whenever you need it, and not just wait for like a moment of inspiration to strike you. Sometimes those help and sometimes those do happen, um, but inspiration won't find you if you don't draw, right? You know that thing that people say about inspiration will find you, but it has to find you working. um, yeah. Um, Actually, this weekend was a very exciting one for me. I was contacted by a big animation studio here in Mexico, um, to, well, this is all NDA, so I cannot tell you who they are and I cannot tell you exactly what I'm making. Um, but they are in collaboration with one very big studio from America, that I have loved since I was a kid. And I've been working with them for a little bit this weekend, and this week, which has been a very cool experience. Um, and I hope that that leads me to even more things in the future. But yeah, um, all of this have to do with, like, in art and design there exist principles. Um, these principles, you know, um, can be a little bit boring. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a very bored person in the sense that I just get bored with everything. Learning principles, so boring. Ah, dang. It's just like so, so so boring sometimes. But they are very important, and you know, um, I think these are like the very, very like crucial points where, like, you can start pinpointing like where it develops into other kinds of art and design, and sometimes you don't even need to like just spend your whole time um, just practicing all the time, just being aware of them, and like trying to work with them a little bit. And I don't mean also like anatomy and stuff like that. I just mean like the core principles of like visual um, industry in general, which can be like stuff like, I don't know, shape, color, shape, outlines, and stuff like that, right? And this is some things that like you probably as artists have heard a lot, um, and um, um, it's just very, 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 very. Um, Sometimes we just take these for granted, and I think it's a little bit when you're starting to work at visual in visual development, you will realize that a lot of these things are very helpful in their, like, truest forms. Um, it's they are very good to just externalize them and like putting them down and trying to like keep them in mind whenever you're trying to draw something, because a lot of the times thinking about it will make you, or being very aware of them will make you stop relying so much on just having moments of inspiration, um, whenever yeah, of relying on like those moments of inspiration, um, um, and you will start just relying on more of your knowledge, and you will know what's working and what doesn't, right? um, and this brings us to a very important part, that like everything that you draw when you're starting in visual development, is that it has to have an objective, it has to have a goal. um, um, in design specifically, um, whenever we do logos, we do publicity, there is an objective to whenever you are creating one of those, and sometimes I feel like a lot of the things that us as artists forget sometimes is that also, especially when you're doing art that is going for the industry, that other people is going to see, you have to be very clear, and you have to be, um, start sending messages, and because this is not something that you want to put out in the world for other people to interpret, like to have an interpretation of whatever they want. You want them to receive the message that you're trying to say. You have to have an objective of the characters, the stories you want to tell, the worlds that you're talking about, right? So having in mind the objective of everything you're making whenever you're getting into visual development. Um, Again, visual development is like this skeleton of whenever you have a film project or a show or just world building. It's very important to start laying down the objectives of of the project that you're working on from that moment, since it's like the base to build up, right? If it's storytelling, is if in the storytelling, if its story is king, then concept is queen. Um, yeah, so you have to be very aware of the objectives that you want to deal with whenever you're starting a project. Um, and this brings us again against like good design versus bad design. Sometimes it's not about something being very pleasant or very ugly looking, or something that just doesn't have a lot of function. But good design versus bad design just boils into the question: did it meet the objective that it had, right? Um, you can tell that you can say that maybe McDonald's hasn't won like an award for making like a very cool and experimental design, but their last campaign that was like the "I'm Loving It" and the little "pa pa pa pa" song like just made their sales go up for like 8%, and one of those like kind of campaigns. 8% for McDonald's is just like so much money, and it just it it just did its objective. The objective they had was like create a campaign that was um, very memorable for people, and they did. Maybe they didn't win an award. Maybe we hear it so much that we don't pay attention. But good design stands out, and great design is invisible, right? Um, it's only until you look into it so much that it becomes clear to us that how much work went into it. Um, um, and I think that's something that sometimes us as artists we forget about. That sometimes those objectives have to be met, and that we are always trying to say something with the illustration, or we should try to say something with illustrations we're making. Not only storytelling, but sometimes something more specific. Um, um, you're trying to communicate, right? And this brings us also to the other part of design that sometimes younger designers and more inexperienced designers, sometimes when they're in school, and I used to be one of these, um, that when you start doing design, you think that everything has to be functional. Sometimes you just think that everything has to be functional. Like it's like, oh yeah, why did you put this there? What functionality it has to, like, that this isn't like the left side corner. Would it be more useful for it to be in the right side corner? And sometimes, and this is because most of the times it's like form full of functions, right? And then I arrived to a very opening eye class where I was like looking at like laws of design, quote unquote laws of design, and sometimes it was like, oh yeah, form follows function, but this is not always true, right? A lot of the times you um, um, would like um, something to be very, very beautiful just because it's fun to make something beautiful. If functionality was the reason why something becomes the best design that we can make, light bulbs would be the most interesting thing that we have in our world, right? Just the ball of light that functions the way it's supposed to, and it just does the thing it's supposed to do in the best way it's supposed to do it, right? Um, and there's no flourishness in a light bulb. But again, if you actually go look for like fancy looking light bulbs, you will find some very interesting ones that are like more appealing than just like having a bulb that we see every day. Um, um, so sometimes functionality, it doesn't have to be in the mainframe whenever you design something as well. So yes, you can also make something beautiful just for the sake of it, as long that was your objective. If your objective was like, hey, I want to draw something very beautiful just because I want the person who looks at it, I want it to cry because like how beautiful the character I made is. Um, you know what? Go ahead. It's just like it's about the objective that you have behind it, right? Um, just having a lot of it's more fun that way to think about it, in like this. Um, and this takes us again to what I said about the rules and laws of design. In graphic design, sometimes when we create logos, when we create whatever publicity, we are tied to a little bit of rules that exist and expectations from people, and society that has set up for us. Um, you know. Certain colors lead to certain ideas and certain um, um, and the clearer we are with those, the better for us. When we create those kinds of things, we are tied to the rules of this world. But when you're a you're in like visual development, you're creating the rules for your own world or the world that you're working on. And it doesn't mean that these rules don't exist, but you can play with them and bend them to your will. This taking account that if the players don't know the rules, um, um, then those rules had no they weren't like effective enough, or they had no reason to exist. But if you repeat enough those rules, um, you can get away with a lot of fun stuff, visually, right? And you might be asking yourself like, oh, what do you mean, like what's this stupid talk about? No. What I mean is that sometimes like you can get away with like the rules of the rhythm and color and shapes in your world can be way different from the ones in this world, when you're making a project, like an animation or a film. um, you can decide that things that are cold are suddenly red and things that are warm are suddenly blue, and repeat it. Repetition is the most important part of it. Again, if the player doesn't know the rules, then they will be very confused. But if you repeat it enough, you will notice that they will assimilate these rules and they will know when it happens. It's kind of like when Frodo has his sword, and they tell him like, oh yeah, orcs are close, um, when orcs are close, the blade turns blue, right? The leaf of the blade is turned blue. Um, um, and they just say it once. They literally say it once, and then we all learn that whenever there's orcs close, the blade is blue, right? So he knows when danger is near. Um, and we understand that, and it's because of the repetition. It always happens. Um, so this is what I mean when you can do this, bend the rules to your advantage in the worlds that you're making your projects. And the same way that shapes can be, something spiky could be like happy and friendly, and something friend shaped and rounded could be angry and mean to you in the world that you're creating, and that's okay. If you repeat it enough, let people know that this is how it is. They will assimilate it as you're making it, and I think that's very beautiful about visual development and design. That these are things that sometimes we don't take in count, that we can use to our advantage, or to tell a story, or to communicate something. Um, and it goes a very long way to telling more interesting and creative stories, um, which I think is just very cool. Um, I don't know, and then that leads us to like some cool moments in like stories where it's like juxtaposition, putting two things against each other to create these contrasts where you make like a killer robot that just looks very cute, and everyone's like, hey, um, you know, um, t- t- humans deserve to die because I'm a robot, right? Um, and but he just looks like I don't know, this cute, adorable little thing, um, and you don't think it's gonna ever hurt you, or how could it hurt you, right? So yeah, that's something that like you can play with. Like you can make like cute creatures very dangerous, and that's like something that happens in a lot of stories. And yeah, um, this is specifically to characters and creatures and stuff like this, specifically to create contrast. But it also works with worlds, the whole world specifically. Um, like you have like in Matrix, whenever he's in the Matrix, everything has this tint of green, this like feel of like plasticky, like I don't know, like not real kind of. It's awkward to look at that tint of green. I don't like it, and it's ugly. And it makes like it's just like an overlay of like a very light green, which makes it seem off. Um, and it can be used very well in Matrix, for example. It just works very well. So like the difference whenever he's in the real world and he is in the Matrix. Um, these things happen, right? And you can get away with it. Same with Coraline. Whenever she is like in the other world, like everything is like more vibrant and stuff like that. But as story advances, whenever she's in danger, instead of like red lights that symbolizes danger, in Coraline, everything that's dangerous is green. Um, um, and has this like very bright light green, that like happens whenever she's fighting, well, when she's like in a moment of danger or a stressful moment, right? And these are like things you can play with, because like at the beginning her real world was very dull, and as like the story progresses, it becomes more bright and beautiful. And this is something that you can use like in like I don't know, color scripts to tell like a story. You like the story helps the um, writing, right, and the characters and the development of it. Or you can also use the color to like make these colors be related to characters, right? um, um, just like we have our villain when they were like little, and like there's like these colors of purple and green and yellow, and then the next scene, they remind us or let us know that this person is the same, because of the colors, right? And they related them to the colors all the time throughout the movie. And these are like rules that you have to like you can decide to have, like, oh yeah, like whenever these colors appear, it means something bad is gonna happen. And it leads to like really cool information that like someone can pick up about like um, storytelling and design and cool stuff. um, but yeah, um, these kinds of rules tells us more. about the story. Visual development is about telling um, more things about like the world you're creating, um, um, and limiting yourself towards this uh, types of rules and constraints lead also to something designated as a um, visual language or style, right? The visual language that your project can have that defines the style of the project, and then the project can start to look more cohesive and coherent, um, and not like nobody actually planned it out, and it looks like a little bit of everything and maybe a little bit of a mess. That is something that can happen, but like giving yourself these kinds of rules makes it sure that like your um, um, project is staying in the right track. Especially nowadays when like films are created by teams of so many people, it's so hard to keep people in track. So having like style guides and these kinds of rules and limitations can help uh, put everyone in check, that they understand the feeling of the project that you have, right? This is a film concept by an artist called Kenny Leoncito. Um, they have a website, is kenesu.com. Um, they're amazing artists, and I think I have used this as an example so many times, but in my class in open animation, but um, it's just so good. The way they just summarize everything into haha, I'm good at using my computer. Um, just like this, the way they make um, the layout and the furniture and the objects um, um, in this story to be kind of flat, but also show some like kind of like perspective in it, and everything is kind of rendered the same way, and it's a very good way of like it's a very good like visual language that they decide to have, and they know how to replicate it many times over different kinds of objects, and it makes it look cohesive, and that like this is a project that is coherent, and they didn't just like wanted to create these kinds of like um, this thing, um, just putting them here like just to show that like show them off, but also because sometimes when you're creating a visual development project, it is important to remember that many people work on these kinds of projects, and sometimes externalizing this internal monologue that you have is like the first step for someone else to understand the feeling that you're trying to give um, um, with the art that you're making or the story that you're going to tell. And even yourself, sometimes we have this idea and we cannot unwrap it. um, you know um, um, it's just like it's just like you're putting it down into words, and you are able to um, discover it, right? Because then like you realize some things, and putting them down into paper releases like kind of like your brain from the concepts that you were like that were floating in your mind, and it allows for others to take its place. I don't know if this is like a weird way to put it. um, but yeah, writing it like it's what it's in your head when you drew like this character, like, oh yeah, you want this character to be shaped of like a keyhole, or this one, these things do not be completely 3D, right? And then like trying to figure out what your characters, not only what your characters look like, but who they are, right? Because this is not only like this is not only telling us what this character looked like, and these are not only like shots of their head that are like, oh yeah, sad, happy, scared. Those are helpful to know like what a character would look like whenever they move their eyes and move their mouth and stuff like that. But sometimes it's more important to know how they would manage themselves in the world that they are, in the context that they are. The character always looks like very, very scared. um, and yeah, this is aiming to tell us a little bit more of what like you want your project to look like. So yeah, the same way. This is by artist Mike Yamada. Worked on Wreck-It Ralph, um, and Kung Fu Panda. um, he is telling us here that like the fire and the chaotic and sharp shapes that the evil characters have, the villains, and yeah, and how they like how they should be, versus how um, flowy and softer these shapes are for like the the characters that are our heroes, right? And this could be replicated in many of um, the shots that happen, maybe a little bit more subtle, but the idea and the intent is there, and those kinds of intents like lead you to if you keep them in mind, leads for like these illustrations to feel cohesive and like coherent, because like you keep in mind like the shape language that you chose, and the visual language that you're trying to achieve, and the objective that you're trying to achieve. Because sometimes it's very easy to get into a drawing and then just like turn off your brain, and this is something I do a lot, and just like um, art goes burr, um, and no brain, only draw, right? And sometimes that's okay, but sometimes you have to like be like, no, wait, focus. You have to like think about what is my objective, what is my goal, um, um, because then you are not like waiting for this inspiration moment to happen. It's just like, hey, I can make this happen because I know what is my objective. I know that maybe technically I'm not all the way up there, but with a little bit of references, a little bit of like investigation, shape exploration, I can get somewhere close to what is my idea in my head. Um, um, and not just rely so much on something coming out just because you're expecting yourself to create something amazing from the start. And it helps give yourself a break. Like, give yourself a break, guys. Um, being an artist already so hard. So you know, make life easy for yourself. Write down your objectives whenever you do illustration, please. um, and yeah, same. This is Mike Yamada. It tells more about like a story, becomes a storytelling, right? Not only just saying because of the shape or what is there, but like you start noticing things like how dull everything is here, and how like you want the focus to be here, and it's not just because this is like the correct way to do it, just because but because that's like what you're trying to say, right? It's like, oh yeah, the heart is attracted to this person because they're cute and they're full of color, and everyone's just boring and ugly, and yeah, um, no room for nuances here, right? When you're trying to communicate things like this to a team full of people who are working on the same project or you, then there's no room for nuances. You have to know what is like the like subjective, like expectations of your characters and the objective reality of the world that they live in, and how they clash, and just put them out there and crank it up to 1,000, and let everybody know that this character's heart is going for this. They're not kind of going for it. They're going for it, right? They're like, you can tell because like it looks like it's about to go out like an alien. You see, this could be an alien. Um, but yeah, and this guy, yeah, these guys are cool, but but not as cool as this. Um, so yeah, some tips that I have, just to wrap it up. This was a small talk about like my thoughts about design and visual development. Some tips, as I said, write that down. Your objectives, your crazy ideas, even if it's like digitally or in a piece of paper. Um, I cannot let you know how much it actually does help. I feel like this is something that people say a lot. Is like, yo, write down your ideas. Like, please, like, write your objectives, your ideas of your characters. Like, really do. Like, it helps so much. It helps like relieve so much stress from doing art. Um, at least in my opinion, doing design, because like in that point, your process should be 80% planning and 20% production. You shouldn't be doing like 20% kind of planning and 80%, 60% procrastinating and 20% um, rushing to see what happens, and pray that the inspiration will find you and you will come up with something good, right? um, should be 80% planning. Write it down, sit down, watch TV. While you're watching TV, something will come up um, in your head, and like write it down. And then one of those days, like sit down, grab your references, grab your ideas, and put them down to work, right? Um, uh, Always use references, many references, and direct and indirect references. If you're making a cowboy, your direct references are cowboy outfits and all the cowboy pictures, and in your indirect references are inspirations for that character that you're making. Maybe you want a cowboy that looks like the Godfather, kind of. So you bring like mafia looking guys, the Godfather movie pictures, and stuff like that. Just indirect, and other things that inspire you, not only something specific. Always try to make your explorations about your projects about the feeling, not about how something is built, right? What do I mean by this? When you do art, and I assume a lot of you have done life drawing, whenever you do, you're trying to draw a figure. Well, you're trying to draw a person through their form. Sometimes you like block them out. You make, oh yeah, the hip is a cube, and the rib cage is another longer cube, and the circle is a sphere, right? And that's okay, but like visual developments should be taught about like as the figure of the pose, right? You are trying to get the movement and the feeling and the rhythm, and how beautiful it is and how it flows, right? Visual development is about the feeling. um, and yeah, and sometimes like just get to work, start doing like some like, yeah, some like feeling paintings. And maybe if it's not looking right, grab some references, and then it just get a little bit nicer, right? These are like paintings that I did that I was like, hey, I want to do this, but then I was like, this is not looking exactly correct, and then I grabbed like a little bit of references and fixed it a little bit. This is all made like in half an hour. Don't be like me, do it like, spend a little bit more time on it. But it's a good idea, like example of how a little bit of references and how working on the feeling rather than or like not jump right into your references right from the bat. Sometimes can help you figure out things first and then build on top of them to make them a little bit nicer. And sometimes if you have too many references, cut them off. Like sometimes there is a thing as too many references, because sometimes they can be very overwhelming. They can be very, very overwhelming. And yeah, um, I think that's all my tips about this, and all I have to say about it as well. I hope you guys enjoy my talk and my, um, uh, uh, j- j- you know, my crazy talk. Um, so yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to me. And I hope you guys have fun with this talk. It was such a pleasure. And thank you guys so much. I hope you learned something. I hope I wasn't too boring. And I hope you have a great day.